it's Mike Briscoe here, your host of the Greater Ossining Chamber of Commerce Chamber Chats series. And I'm here with Pat Yost. How you doing, Pat?
Good
Nice
to see you again.
Thanks for coming by.
Happy to be here.
And could you tell us who you are and tell us the name of your business, please?
Sure. Pat Yost, live here in Ossining. I've been a resident for about 25 years now. My company is called HRLM Consulting. It's just me, and I'm an individual practitioner.
And what do those letters stand for?
Actually, it stands for Hudson River Lake Muskoka. Two bodies of water where over the last probably 45, 50 years, I've spent a significant amount of time enjoying them and being on them and just everything about it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very nice. So it's a consulting firm. Is that what we're calling it?
Yep.
Consulting firm. And we talked a little bit about that, but what I'd like to know is a little bit of your history, because it's always interesting finding out about people's backgrounds, how they wound up getting into something, because there's always like a story there.
Yeah.
You know, so you shared with me, so you went to college, you came out of college, and tell us what your first job was out of college.
Yep. So first job out of school, I actually worked for Procter & Gamble, and I made soap for a living. So spent about 11 years with Procter & Gamble. First job was actually on a packing floor where did shift work and put the soap in the bottles and labels on the bottles and caps on the bottles and bottles in the boxes and sent them off to be used. And then also at Procter & Gamble, I worked in the warehouse.
Mm-hmm.
So I managed the distribution center, did some planning, and in the end, I worked in the sales organization up in the Northeast.
So as you were doing that, do you think what you're doing now, did some of the skill sets that you were learning then, were you like, oh, this is interesting, like either doing the sales part or doing the logistics part or the operations part? It sounds like this is leading into what you're doing now. Like, what did you learn from those jobs in the beginning, and did you even know you were learning that then?
Probably not, right? Because it was just, you're in the moment, and
Mm-hmm.
like I was lucky enough to have a bunch of really good sort of mentors and managers who taught me as I went along the way. But it absolutely is true, right? So I was learning how to problem solve. I was learning how business actually works.
Because people say that all the time. I'm like, what do you actually do?
Yeah, so lots of different kinds of consulting. You know, some people are familiar with sort of technology consulting, people who come in and put in big, you know, technology systems and platforms. That's not what I do.
Mm-hmm.
I do what I call sort of operational consulting, which is really all around, when you get right to the bottom of it, it's how do companies work more effectively, work more efficiently, and grow faster. So I think there are a couple of different ways that you can become more effective or efficient, right? One is you do what you're doing, but you do it in a way that is faster, takes less time, it has less steps, right? You can be more effective by shifting the work around. So sometimes you have people doing the same thing in multiple ways, and you can just make everybody do it one way. Technology these days is a huge part of that because it's everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I would say it's very, very different from when I started, when technology was just really getting started. Right. But now like it's so easy to use new tools such as artificial intelligence. There's so much computing power on people's watches, on people's phones,
and the software is just getting better and better, and more efficient,
and better, and faster and faster. And so, a big part of what I do now is, while I still am focused on how do people work together, how are you organized, are you working effectively, but it's also what are the steps that you're doing and how are you using technology to do it faster and more effectively.
And so what kind of information, so do you I guess you meet with the owners or executives of a company and you would ask them questions and they would tell you like, these are our goals, we're trying to do this, we're getting stuck here, we're having trouble with this, and you find solutions to help them kind of streamline their business?
Yep, absolutely. And a lot of it depends on the size of the company, right? I tend to work with, when I started consulting, I actually worked with like small, medium-sized businesses, anywhere, less than $100 million, all the way down to like $4 or $5 million in revenue. And so obviously the bigger the company, the more complex.
Right.
And so, but really, while the issues might be identified by the leader or whoever's company it is, the reality is you have to, I personally like to spend time with the people who are like doing the work on a day-to-day basis, because the reality is that's where, you know, you can make things more effective, and that's where most of the work gets done.
Are you doing things like finding a software solution? Like if somebody's telling you about problems they might have in their company, are you like, well, I know this great software that you should use, and
Yep.
and are you doing it for the software companies also? Are you helping them find clients for their software? Do you do that, or is that's really different?
No, I'm
You're
not
working with the company and you're
Yeah.
finding solutions for them.
Absolutely. So I'm not. There is a big, like, there's a big side of consulting where you get a lot of the big companies who partner with software providers, and they essentially act as like a sales arm to go sell the solution. But that's not the kind of work I do. I work with the end user, the end company, figure out what the problems are, figure out, like, problem solve. How can we fix the problem? And part of that might be a technology need, and then we'll go figure out what the technology, you know, what software package it might be.
Right. And how do you find your clients, or how do they find you?
So, you know, most of it is networking. So,
That's a common thread for, you know, it's so important, the networking. People don't realize how important that is. I mean, can we talk about that for a second?
yeah, absolutely. So,
How do you do that? Like, how do you network?
So it kind of goes back to, for me, I kind of have a bunch of different parts of my life, right? I worked with a lot of people when I was at Procter & Gamble. I've worked with a lot of people when I was in consulting for a large consulting company. Or I have, you know, people that I know from school, potentially. And so the reality is I've maintained relationships with all of them from that perspective over time. And, you know, people know what I do, people know that I do good work, and so if they identify a company that's small, that, you know, where the problem is big enough that I can do it on my own, like, they'll give me a call, and then it's up to me to build, go talk to the company, talk to the person, see if we have a good relationship, a good working relationship, and if it might actually work.
Can you walk us through some of the process? So if you find the company that you're going to work with, how do you find out? Like, what sort of information are you looking for from them?
So I think the biggest thing is, first of all, I'm going to go in and we're going to sit down. We're going to talk about what the problem is. Like, help me understand, like,
what would be like a common problem that you might hear from a company that you work with?
So a lot of times I think we talked a little bit about this, right? A lot of times I come into a company, because a big part of my work is helping companies merge, right? So if two companies are, you know, if one company bought another company, or two companies want to work together, a big part of what I do is helping to bring them together.
Or it seems to happen a lot. Like, I see that all the time. Companies merging, buying each other.
Yeah, and for any number of reasons, right? One, you know, they're too big. The work is becoming too big. Sometimes people, especially with smaller companies, or, you know, individually owned companies, people they're kind of get tired, so they want to sell their company to somebody else, right? Or, you know, you've got family companies where the kids don't want to do the work anymore,
right?
And so they're looking for somebody to sell to. So a lot of times I start with, you know, what's the problem. Sometimes it's we need to bring these two companies together, so let's figure out how to do that. Or sometimes it's I keep losing, you know, I don't think my sales team is doing really well. I think we could do better. And it really starts with a clear question of, like, what's the problem?
Right.
And then once, you know, we do that, then I take back and I, you know, talk to a couple of the people around the company and kind of say, okay, try and get an idea around what do I think might be a potential root cause, or what might be a potential way to fix it. And then I come up with an approach, and then it's up to me to, you know, convince the owner that this will work.
Right.
And that's the sales part of it.
That's it, right.
That's the sales part of the job, right? Because as an independent consultant, it's up to me to generate my own business.
How did you learn how to do sales? If you're going to work with a company's staff, if they say, well, we don't think our sales staff is doing that well, where did you get your sales skills from?
So me selling me is,
Well, there's both. There's you selling you,
yep,
but there's also if you go into a company and try to, get their sales staff to do better.
yeah.
Where did you get all that training
So
from?
some of that was at Procter & Gamble,
Mm-hmm.
and then I've been consulting for about 30 years now,
Okay.
and so I've been helping sales organizations do a lot of improvements.
Right.
So it's an experience.
And it's really one big thing because if you get tons of sales in,
Yeah.
and you can't follow up with these people, and you can't deliver because your systems aren't in place, that's a whole other problem.
Exactly.
So is that like a thing that happens to any companies? Like their sales force gets super strong and then they just can't handle the amount of work that potentially coming in?
It happens a lot.
It happens a lot.
It happens a lot.
Does it happen more so than the other way around? Like having a really strong systematic approach and just not enough sales coming in. I mean, I guess that would happen too, but you're saying it happens a lot. People start working on their sales more so sales are coming in and they just can't handle it.
I think what I've found is that in companies that are growing, like smaller companies and mid-sized companies, what makes a difference is actually what the owner or the person who's leading the company focuses on. Because if somebody grew up and they're a great salesperson and they really focus on the sales side, they may end up generating a huge amount of revenue, but if they're not focusing on how do you fulfill that, then that becomes a problem. Whereas, companies that have operators, people who ran manufacturing plants or,
Right.
kind of machine shops or something like that, who really just love to operate, they've got these great, wonderful, efficient operations in the back, but they're not using all the capacity because they haven't focused on the sales team. It's really interesting because that's the one thing I think that is really consistent, is that people tend to focus on what they're good at. And in a startup, that's fantastic. But at some point, you need to be a little bit more broad in what you're looking at when
Right.
you're trying to grow your company. And that's hard a
Yeah.
lot of times. And actually that's where, hiring somebody like myself can come in and really help make a difference, because I had some skills or a point of view that might not be there.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you write blogs about, did you write any of this kind of information down? Because so much of this stuff is so valuable. I guess we have to pay you to hire you.
I'm old school. I'm old school, right? So I don't have a huge. I do a lot. I follow social media. I don't generate a lot of social media,
Right.
or blogs or things like that. Probably something I could do a little bit more of, but I don't.
Okay. Nice to
It's a
see
pleasure.
you.
Good
And
to
this
see
was
you.
really great. Can you just let our audience know how they can get in touch with you, where they can get in touch with you?
Sure. It's pretty easy, right? HRLM Consulting at gmail.com. It's pretty simple. Or you can find me here in the village. I'm around a lot.
All right. Well, there you go. Thanks to Pat Yost, and I'm Mike Risco signing off for Chamber Chats.